Hello everybody, good morning. I'm going to do this in English, and we have Alfredo in the back going to do translation. I won't, if you have a question in Spanish, I should have a look at you, because you're not the Spanish ones. I'm more than willing to answer that as well. So my name is Juha van Zelfde. It's the most unpronounceable name outside of the Netherlands, but there you go. I am Artistic Director of Lighthouse, and I'm gonna play you some music. Not this one. I'm gonna play you some music by Stephen O'Malley, who played at the opening of the Dread exhibition in the Hallen in Haarlem. That's about exactly a year ago. It should be on SoundCloud. I'm just gonna play that in the back while I'll show you some images from that exhibition, and I'll tell you something about how that came about and how what we do at Lighthouse and how those things have informed what we're experiencing here today, and what we opened yesterday and what will be on show here in the next 5 months. And for me, that started with winning this curatorial scholarship, this young curatorial grant in the Netherlands, which is at the Hallen in Haarlem, one of the kind of most adventurous institutions of contemporary art in the Netherlands. And every 2 years they hand out this wonderful scholarship with quite a hefty sum of money, and a great opportunity to do research for a year and work with the entire museum staff and do their flagship biannual exhibition. So I was fortunate enough to win that in 2012, and worked on that and created a show called Dread. And Dread for me was a personal exorcism of the post 9/11 emotion or sensation of fear-mongering you'd see in the news, or you'd read about, or you'd experience in Hollywood films, or while visiting or while traveling and going through airport security. And I thought it would be an interesting opportunity to bring in artists who share that sensibility and share that observation, and who bring in a visual and sonic and spatial and temporal sensibility to the subject. And we made a show, and this work by Laurent Grasso is here as well. This is a work by Roger Hirons, the guy from the foam sculptures who are in the center of the room. And also in Haarlem, he took quite a big space in the middle of the exhibition with this atomized jet engine. So this is a former Boeing engine from a kind of commercial airliner that flew into the Twin Towers, and it's just completely pulverized and now made into dust, or it's metallic dust, and both looks beautifully alien, like some distant planet, but it's also some kind of Gerhard Richter-like abstract. It's kind of Richter meets Richard Long landscape. It's the ashes of all of these things. It's but it's most of all, it's the Icarus sign of we invented and we imagined ourselves as human beings to fly, but then this is when you crash. Maybe it's a bit too dramatic to keep the music on all the time, but I just wanted to play the drone because there's a nice musical connection to the subject. It would have been nice to have that music yesterday at the opening, but Stephen wasn't available. But last year we had, and it was also kind of after all the dready experience of this kind of art where you're kind of gloomed and doomed down. It's nice to have this kind of music as well to kind of exercise that and release that tension and just continue, go on. So for me, that in a very personal way, maybe that is also to answer Hito's style question. from this week, what's the use or what's the role of art in the age of emergency, and perhaps one way, one use is to release the tension and to forget and go on. So James was in that exhibition as well. I'm not sure if there's an image of his work in there. This is Alicia Framis' work, the Room to Forget, and behind is Sarah van Sonsbeek's Faraday tent. This is Constance New Babylon with Mark Bain's Dread Chord, which was a drone devil's chord that was forbidden by the Catholic Church. So, just going through there, same design, actually spatial design as here, Miroslav Rajic. So this kind of architectural intervention there as well. So that was a very research-like and performance-like exhibition with in total 30 works, 20-something artists, all kinds of different media, some of them more, perhaps not more finished, but less processed than others. Some works are ongoing or are more like a screen grab of a capture of the moment. Some of them are very formal and traditional and very art-like, and all of them with incredible, for me, very incredible cultural and social and contemporary relevance to well, in this case, the subject of how do we live under the shadow of fear and of apprehension and of pending catastrophe or projected pending catastrophe. So the kind of the political abuse of projected catastrophe, as in the case with we need certain surveillance, or we need certain weapons, or we need certain systems of control in order to prevent terrorism, or to prevent diseases to break out, or to prevent whatever situation that is undesired by the people that control or organize society for us and with us and on behalf of us. So that was my maturing and coming out as an organizer or as a curator, and that got me to, I mean, I have a history, a longer history before, but that was kind of the TLDR, too long didn't read version of how I got to Lighthouse. And Lighthouse is a cultural agency in Brighton in the UK, and we're very much a process, or an institution as process and a process as institution, and that keeps changing. So we've been a arts and training facility for mostly film and new media. We have for the past 4 years been a digital culture agency, and we've made steps and matured and released versions of the institution almost like you would release versions of software. So with a focus on art and technology, and with surfing on the rhythm of Moore's law, and using the viral potential and momentum of social media and the growing community around the subject, and the growing importance of uncovering the inner workings of technology and the role and use of art for that. We are becoming more and more established in that sense, and we're in need of more space to do that, or figuring out what kind of shape we need to keep on growing and doing that. So from that digital culture agency, we're now we have the ambition and we have the vision to be more of an institute of contemporary culture in the future in Brighton, and we've started on that ride, or at least I have started on that ride in February. We've just been granted another 3 years of public funding by the Arts Council. We remain a national portfolio organization, which gives us a certain position in the landscape in the UK to continue developing art and supporting artists, but most of all, develop an audience for these kind of artistic practices and products and processes and projects that we all love and engage with and are enthusiastic about. I want to share with a bigger audience. So I think the anchors of our program are film and what probably you will know as the maker movement, but it's kind of a craft that is also in flux, but technology, media, coding, design, whichever label you want to put on it, but it's kind of tinkering and making, and we have a studio for that, and visual arts, and more music and sound as well, and through and around and underneath and on top of that, and parallel to that, it's critical thinking and research and investigative journalism, but also just kind of research and researchers we work with. And so we have a monthly talk program where we invite one of the smarter people we are inspired by to come to Brighton and tell their story and reveal what's happening in the world and have a conversation with our community and kick off different conversation and dialogues with our residents and with our artists and with our team to form and shape and criticize and post-produce our programs. So we recently had Corinna Gardner of the V&A's Rapid Response collection. We have Jack Searle of the Bureau of Investigative Journalism coming up in a few weeks. And Haroon Mirza is coming up, a sound artist. And Terminal Beach have been invited and will be there at one point in the future. And it's for us a really important way of creating like a clubhouse or a physical representation of the social community and of our Twitter and Facebook feeds. And one important thing for us, besides supporting new art and emerging patterns in various cultural fields that we're interested in, is kind of sharing that to as wider audience as possible and developing an international attention and engagement with that. So we have worked before on an international project in Barcelona and with José Luis de Vicente, and I think it was called Invisible Fields, but having been up late night last night and having not enough coffee yet, I'm looking at Fiona to correct me if it was Invisible Fields. It was indeed. And this is our second international and huge collaboration, and it's a massive privilege to come here. And it was the first project that I got involved with, and it is a natural continuation, extension of both what Lighthouse has been doing in the past years with with the exhibitions of James and Marilla before at Lighthouse during one of the festivals, and with Trevor Paglin, with Timo Arnal, and with Mette Haven and Holly Herndon, and on the other hand, my personal dread and similar projects. So when I got here in February, I basically was catapulted to Gijón to jump on this riding train that was started by Honor and LABoral, and it's incredible that we have such a massive show and such an incredible program around it, and all of you have heard this story, I believe yesterday already, but maybe instead of telling you my personal experiences of making the exhibition, because that could take on for hours, I instead wanted to show you something that, if you've not seen, shows as well the urgency of the subject of making this, and shows you also how viral and how in public the subject is and should be. And that's a very poignant piece by John Oliver recently. I think it's 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's from September 28th. And with your permission, I'll just play you this and see how long we have, or we like this.
The program is widely accepted. We really know relatively little about it. We spent a lot of time this week trying to find some concrete answers to basic questions, and it's surprisingly difficult. For instance, how do we decide when to use a drone strike? Now, on the surface, the Obama administration's answer seems straightforward.
We only take these kinds of actions when there's an imminent threat, when capture is not feasible, and when we are confident that we're doing so in a way that's consistent with federal and international law.
Okay, that sounds reassuring until you look closer at it, because our rules for drone strikes are a little like Harvey Keitel's balls. We've all seen them in The Piano, Bad Lieutenant, or on Snapchat, and from a distance you think, well, I understand the contours of those. But if you were to really examine them, you discover that they're actually lost in a haze of fuzziness and grey areas, much like the rules for our drone strikes. As Eric Holder just said, drone strikes are justified if you can show an imminent threat. Now that sounds clear. There's not much of a linguistic loophole there, unless you make one.
NBC News has obtained this confidential 16-page Justice Department memo. It says an imminent threat does not require the United States to have clear evidence that a specific attack on U.S. persons and interests will take place in the immediate future.
Well, but an imminent threat does have to take place in the immediate future, because that's what the f***ing word imminent means. When someone says, I'm going to have a baby imminently, it doesn't mean I may or may not have a baby at some point in the future. It means, get your fucking car keys, my water just broke. And it turns out imminent isn't the only word with a surprisingly fluid definition when it comes to drone strikes. What defines a civilian when it comes to civilian casualties has also allegedly been open to interpretation.
There's also been some dispute over the way civilian casualties are counted. The CIA often counts able-bodied males, military-age males who are killed in strikes as militants unless they have concrete evidence to sort of prove them innocent.
Hold on. If it's assumed you're with the terrorists, if you're in the same vicinity and around the same age as them, then by that standard, as a British man in my 30s, whenever I go home to London, I'm a member of Coldplay. And that's offensive to me. That's offensive. I've not been in that band for years. We consciously uncoupled a long time ago. Perhaps the most incredible thing about our drone program, which again, a majority of us support, is not how little we know about who the government is killing, but how little they themselves seem to know.
NBC News has examined classified documents detailing 114 drone strikes. They also reveal what U.S. officials don't know, like how many killed. Between 7 and 10 in one strike, 20 to 22 in another. It suggests U.S. officials don't always know exactly how many or who they're killing.
That is a little disturbing, because the question, how many people have you killed in drone strikes, is not one of those questions where it's okay to say, I don't know. It's not like asking someone who was the voice of Disney's Aladdin or what are Skittles made from. It's different. It's different than that. And the crazy thing is, it has literally always been like this. The very first CIA drone strike back in 2002 killed 3 men, reportedly because they thought one of them might have been bin Laden, in part, and this is true, due to his height. And under that rationale, it's kind of remarkable that we didn't take out Jeff Goldblum at some point over the years. Now, reports later indicated the victim was actually an innocent man who was collecting scrap metal. And look how the Pentagon immediately set the template for every discussion we've had about drone strikes since.
You said you don't know who was killed in this attack, whether it's civilians, Taliban, or...
No, I'm sorry.
We don't know exactly who it was.
We don't know the identities of the individuals involved.
But you're convinced they're Taliban?
We're convinced that...
We're convinced it was an appropriate target. Based on the observation, based on the information, that it was an appropriate target. We do not know yet exactly who it was.
It's never a good idea to make a major decision about someone when you can't even say exactly who they are. Hey, guys, I got married last night. Oh, really? Who is he? I don't know exactly at this time, but I'm convinced he's an appropriate husband based on his height. And yet, we have consistently let the government get away with answers like that, because drone strikes are one of those things that it's really convenient not to think about that much. Like the daily life of a circus elephant, or the fact that Beck is a Scientologist. You really don't want people reminding you about those kind of things. But if you happen to live underneath drones, not thinking about them is not an option. Having drones hovering above you is bound to mess with your head, especially because you might not even be able to see them.
Even though I know there's a predator directly overhead, I still can't hear a thing. And if you look up to the exact spot where we're being told the predator is flying right now, there's nothing but clouds and blue sky.
Congratulations, everyone. We did it. We managed to make one of the last remaining universal symbols of pleasantness, blue sky, completely fucking terrifying. We did it. Woo! And look, while we may not spend much time thinking about our drone strikes here, in countries like Pakistan, where they actually happen, they have to deal with them so much. There are even weird satirical cartoons featuring an American drone and his friend, a dengue fever-carrying mosquito.
अच्छा चल छोड़ इन बातों को ये बता तुझे पाकिस्तान कैसा लगता है कैसा लगता है अरे मैंने तो पूरा खानदान ही यहाँ बुलवा लिया है तो यहाँ की हुकूमत ने तुम्हारे खिलाफ कुछ किया अभी तक तो सिर्फ बयान दिया है मैं भी कई सालों से यही सुन रहा हूँ इसीलिए तो हम पाकिस्तान में मौज कर रहे हैं
To be fair, that would be a lot funnier if you spoke Urdu and lived in constant fear of being murdered by a drone. If you did, that's basically who's on first. In fact, drone strikes are such a routine feature of life in Pakistan. This is how news networks present statistics about them.
पाकिस्तानी हुकूमत की मर्जी से कर रहा है जवाब में 41% अफराद ने इसराइल से इत्तेफाक किया और कहा कि अमेरिका
Drones have their own graphics package. You do not invest in top quality graphics like those unless you know you're going to get a lot of use out of them. It's like Las Vegas local news having White Tiger mauling graphics. They're going to get their money's worth. But to really understand the psychological impact of living underneath drones, listen to this Yemeni man, a man who loves America, addressing Congress last year, only a week after his village was struck by a drone.
I spent a year living with an American family and attended an American high school. That was one of the best years of my life. The friendships and values I experienced and described to the villagers helped them understand the America that I know and that I love. Now, however, when they think of America, they think of the terror they feel from the drones that hover over their heads, ready to fire missiles at any time. The drone strikes are the face of America to many Yemenis.
And that kind of makes sense. Because think about it this way. If there were Italian armed drones hanging over your head right now, it would probably affect the way you think about Italy. In word association, your first answer for Italy would not be lasagna, it would be spectre of imminent death, or more likely, spectre of the imminent death, followed by lasagna. If you grow up underneath drones, it's going to affect the way you see the world. Listen to this 13-year-old Pakistani boy whose grandmother was killed in a drone strike.
I no longer love blue skies. In fact, I now prefer gray skies. The drones do not fly when the skies are gray, and for a short period of time, the mental tension and fear eases.
Look, it is completely natural for us not to want to think about the consequences of our drone program. But when children from other countries are telling us that we've made them fear the sky, it might be time to ask some hard questions. The problem is, after a week of looking at this, it seems there are shockingly few available answers. In fact, the best summation we could find of the framework we use to authorize and justify drone strikes is from this former Defense Department advisor.
Right now we have
Yeah,
the
so
executive branch making a claim that it
this kind of summarizes in a very raw and black and white way, but very in a funny and poignant way, the subject we're talking about. And maybe we can just leave it with that for now and just give the floor or the microphone to our next guest, and we'll continue in the conversation and figure out a way what all the questions are and how we can involve all of you with that. So, thank you.